Aunt Sarah is the aunt of Darling. She is opinionated. She is a smidge passive aggressive. She likes things her way. And anything that happens that is not to her liking, you will see an eyebrow raise or a disapproving look. So, of course, everything Lady does drives her up a wall, and she's very displeased for most of the movie. The only people that make Aunt Sarah smile are Darling and little Lulu. She doesn't care for Jim. She doesn't care for Lady. She doesn't care for the pet store owner. She doesn't care about anybody else but Darling and the baby. So she's a very interesting person to play. I think what makes Lady and the Tramp so beloved is the story of acceptance, the story of everyone has a home, everyone has a place, and even if you don't know where you belong, that place will ultimately find you. I think that's a beautiful idea that's really good right now in the times that we're living in. I think that any story that takes a misfit or an outcast and shows their heart and shows that they're courageous or a fighter, and then helps and we take the journey as they find their way to where they're supposed to be. I think that that's something that every single person can like, oh yes. And I think that's what Lady and the Tramp brings. It brings like this outcast that finds his home. How it's just beautiful. One of the best parts of doing Lady and the Tramp with Charlie, our director, and Brig, our wonderful producer, they're very collaborative. So Thomas, Kiersey, and I did a full week of rehearsals before we even got into character, just to make sure that we knew who each other were and how we all worked together as a family unit. There's a lot of improvisation. There's a lot of playfulness. Charlie's really open to what we think our character would do at any moment. And there's been a couple of times where we've said something or done something. He's like, yes, that's that, do that, put that in. There's a reason that dogs are used for therapy. There's something healing about just sitting and just petting a dog. Everyone knows that. And so to be on a set where they're everywhere, you just feel peace. I do anyway. And also because there's dogs on set, there's not a lot of yelling. You know what I mean? We don't do a lot of yelling on the set. There's not a lot of, we need it. No, everybody's having regular conversations with each other because nobody wants to upset all the animals that are on set. That's really nice too. It's a good vibe. I think that I wish everywhere I go I could have a dog with me. I really do. I think that they bring a peace that no other animal brings. And again, it goes back to the unconditional love. They're just little furry balls of love.
I play Jim Deere in Lady and the Tramp, and I think he's he's a really kind-hearted, sort of maybe a slightly neurotic kind of guy, and he just wants to be there for his family. The best thing about Charlie is that he is so open to our ideas, and he wants us to be excited about what we're doing. This is the story of a dog named Lady who has a beautiful home and family, and a dog named Tramp who does not have a beautiful home or family, but who come together and and teach each other different life lessons, and have this sort of whirlwind romance, and sort of come together at the end despite a lot of complications along the way. Jim Deere and Darling have a very loving, sometimes comical relationship. We wanted the dynamic to be more that that Darling was kind of the strong-minded person who made all the decisions in the relationship, and Jim was sort of the neurotic one.
I play Darling. She's a bit more straightforward than her partner, Jim Deere. I think she wears the pants in the family, even though she wears lots of beautiful dresses and skirts. She's, I think, funny in the way that she interacts with people because she doesn't like to sugarcoat stuff, but she's also lots of fun. This is a new marriage and a new family, so Jim Deere and Darling, they're like practicing for the baby, I think, with the dog. And so in the beginning, Lady's getting all of Darling's maternal energy and nurturing and attention, and then obviously, naturally, that transfer over to the human life, which is Lulu. But at the end, they all come back together, and Lady realizes that she's just as important as Lulu is. I'm so excited to work with Adrian because he has this. I think character actors are really exciting. I don't know if he even considers himself that. I do. But I was really excited to meet him and to play in the rehearsal process that we had before filming, because now seeing him in the outfit and dealing with the dogs is so impressive. And it's also fun to actually create the differences between Jim Deere's relationship with the dog catcher and Darling's relationship with the dog catcher. Because a lot of times in relationships and in marriages, there are conflicting people that exist, whether it's like the annoying neighbor or something, or in this instance, the dog catcher. So to see them both have their different ways of how they deal with him has been really fun to play with. I'm excited about Janelle and, well, everyone doing voices in the movie is exciting, but for her to come in and also loan us her musical talents is going to be pretty insane.
In the original film, there's a little Scotty dog who is called Jock. And in our version of the film, there's a little Scotty dog called Jackie, who is a little female dog. And she's quite a feisty little character, quite a loud character. And if something can be shouted rather than said, she will shout it rather than say it. We all like an underdog, don't we? We all like, Tramp, who's this street dog who's had it rough, and we all like to see the underdog rising, and the slightly haughty lady dog kind of, and they meet in the middle somewhere, and we can. I mean, it's almost like Romeo and Juliet, isn't it? I mean, again, it's a classic tale. It's like people from opposites, and then they come together, and then this magic happens. Jackie is absolutely adored by her owner, Sally. She's almost she's pretty much a lap dog. She gets dressed up in cute little costumes. Oh, I have a top hat. I have snowsuits. I have. There are all sorts of little silly costumes. So she's the dog that is the muse to her owner. Her owner's an artist, so she's being painted all the time. So she's a little bit full of herself. She kind of likes herself. She loves her life. She's happy and very confident and very much likes the sound of her own voice.
Elliot sees Tramp as this stray that is sort of emblematic of everything that's wrong with strays. He's hairy, mangy, dangerous. That's how he describes him in the movie. And he just doesn't want him to be running around, making more tramps and all this kind of thing. And but I do feel at the end of the movie, he comes to terms with the fact that this is just a beautiful animal that belongs with his family. And that's a sweet beat in the movie. Elliot sees Lady as sort of smart but misguided. Like, why would you put caviar next to a burger? Do you know what I mean? And so he's trying to, he puts her in the kennel, but when she gets out, he's kind of like realizing that she doesn't belong with Tramp. I mean, come on, so there's something wrong with this picture. And I feel like in the end, though, he comes to terms with it all and sees that this is part of a family that shouldn't be messed with. I just feel like being in Savannah, it's like the perfect city for this movie because there's a magical quality to it. And I'm not just saying that. You walk around and you see the Spanish moss everywhere. The city's quiet. The city just embraces this sort of atmosphere where, you feel like you're in another time. So that's been terrific. And when they redid Wright Square with some of the storefronts changed to that era, wow, it's just like the horses go by and I've got my paddy wagon and it's just very cool. Lady and the Tramp is iconic because it really is about love and about how people define for themselves what love is, and you have two different beings that seemingly have nothing in common finding love, and I just feel like that's an important message.
This is a film that was made by people who love dogs for people who love dogs. The opening quote on the film is all about the things, the most valuable things in life, including the wag of a dog's tail. And so it comes from that place. But then, as you mentioned, it also covers the ground about people with different backgrounds, different points of view, being able to come together and ultimately get over those differences and fall in love. It's a wonderful romance, as well as a great sort of shaggy dog tale about a dog finding a home. We have Thomas Mann playing Jim Deere, and we have Kiersey Clemens playing Darling. And we have gone a little deeper into those character bios beyond what the movie actually suggested, because they were kind of sort of an every man and woman in that movie in that period. But we've sort of suggested here that he is a composer and she was a singer, and we imagine that's what brought them together initially, was their shared love of music. And we can see moments of them doing that as a family. But we also love the fact that there's a real vulnerability to Thomas's character, Jim Deere, and there's this sort of strength in Darling's character, and we can see what makes that relationship work and how that dynamic is shared, where Thomas can be, in all the important ways, very deferential to Darling, and Darling can be very supportive of Jim Deere. And so I think it's awfully cute, and I think that our actors have done a beautiful job with those character renditions. Charlie's been phenomenal to work with, and I think that from a technical standpoint, Charlie, he has a great command of what we needed on this movie, which was a command of tone, knowing that you needed real humor. He's a guy who innately understands what's going to be funny in the scene without getting silly in the scene. He also has a real keen sense of drama and storytelling, and understanding how these scenes need to stitch together and how you need to keep very careful track of the emotional through line on this movie, and very adept at that. He's also a very skilled animator. He came up through the ranks over the years in animation, and this movie is virtually half animated. And so that it's a whole pipeline unto itself, and understanding that has been invaluable for us.
If you were to ask someone if they've seen the cartoon, the movie originally, which scene comes to mind, it's going to be the one that I'm going to be doing. And I'm playing Tony. It happens that I'm part Italian, and that doesn't mean that I'm going to be wonderful in the part. The point is, I have a real connection with this guy, because in fact he looks a lot like my mother's family. It was a big family of people, hardworking people, and then they all had these mustaches, like this one. So consequently, I feel a great burden of responsibility to deliver on this, because the fact is, everybody has an idea of this character and of this scene. It was very important to me that I get it right, that I pay homage to the original, but at the same time bring an originality to it. And with this script and with the actors I'm working with, that's possible, but mainly because of this organization. They've treated it with such care.
Well, I play a dog, oddly enough, named Trusty. And Trusty is a bloodhound, I believe. And I think Trusty comes by his name because he's a trustworthy dog. Because he's, he is what he is. It seems to be a huge theme in this, the loyalty of the canines. And I think Trusty falls right in with that bunch. I'm excited to be a part of anything that Disney does anytime the opportunity comes along. And it's just to be working on a project that I saw, a remake of a project that I saw when I was a kid, is pretty astounding, pretty incredible for me. And I like this character. I like Trusty. I like what he stands for, although he's kind of old and senile at this point, I think, on some level. I like what he stands for. I like the name. There's something in the name, It's a big theme in this film, the loyalty factor. The Lady and Tramp it's timeless, it's ageless, it holds up, but to see it with this new technology, see what it's going to bring to it, it's going to be pretty spectacular.
Huge fan of the original. It's up there with some of the big ones for me. I come from an animation background, and
Peter Pan, Alice, Jungle Book. These are like the big ones, and Lady and the Tramp it's one of the huge ones for me. Like my some of my big heroes in animation, Nine Old Men, Frank Thomas, and those guys animating some of the most iconic scenes, like when we first meet Tramp and him doing that stretch and shake. Obviously, the spaghetti scene and just the level of animation that those guys were doing in the film. They were just really peaking in their ability. Yeah, so it lives in a very special place in my sort of growing up, but also me becoming a cartoonist and an animator. We had these very funny casting calls where we would go to a park and meet these dogs in the park. Like all these dogs would come and we'd meet them and photograph them, and like with Mark and it was very clear, I think, when we met Monty, who's playing Tramp, that he was the right one, and the same with Rose. We many Cocker Spaniels very specific with Lady, that look, and we met many different ones, but it had so much more to do with than just the look. It was their personalities, and that really comes through I think on screen. We all believe in rescuing animals, and it's kind of cool that a lot of the dogs, Monty in particular, we rescued him and Jagger, and many of these animals we rescued from shelters and bad situations, and then they're trained them from scratch. They're not trained animals that have come from a training background, and it's amazing what Mark and the whole team has been able to do. He's such a writer's brain, constantly writing on the mic, always making things better, making things funnier, making things more interesting. And also, another one is such a depth of dramatic abilities as an actor. So it's it's fantastic. Very, very different character, and so it's so much fun to see and work with him in a dramatic side. It's great. Tessa is so great. Now she's also so funny, like a real improv comedian. I mean, she is. That's the way that she thinks about it, and the way she approaches it. And working with her, really similar to the way that I work with Justin. And we're constantly, trying things and making things funnier. This movie is a romantic, dramatic movie first, but we're always finding little things to make ourselves laugh and to make it more fun. It's really good.
When we finally got to filming the spaghetti scene, it was serendipitous. There was a full moon in the sky. We could have never predicted that. And I got a little misty, I have to say. I just, the moment that Maury Abraham stepped out of the set and started singing Bella Notte with Our Lady and Tramp sitting at the table, it came to life for me, and it was so heartwarming. It really melted my heart. It was really special. Savannah's beautiful, and when we first came and scouted Savannah, it was really clear that this was the right place to film this story. It had incredible neighborhoods that were seemingly untouched from the turn of the century. We really, in my experience, the amount of time it took us to scout was minimal, because there are neighborhoods within this city that truly captured what we were going for.